Welcome to Unit 33 of Security Considerations, Principles and Practice of Banking of JIIB. When we talk security considerations, we should understand why security is required, what are its considerations, what are its objectives, and how the organization is going to benefit out of this security management. Whole gamut of framework, we'll have to understand that. In the slides we have presented here, we developed understanding for the IS security, need for IS security, threats and risk management, requirements of IS security, understand the need for IS audit, and compliance requirement. Whole thing is called as security consideration. When we consider that the need for security consideration, security requirement, we should understand why this is required. So why? Because there are n number of technologies available here to support the service point of the banking industry, and when we do as a service, a quality service is delivered through the use of technology, and a lot of technology is also used to meet the customer demand, client's demand, which is client-driven opportunities are provided to the bank. Okay. While we are enjoying the technology, benefits of the technology, we also see a lot of technology used by miscreants or fraudsters in the area of spoofing or stealing the data, which is very confidential to the organization and private to the clients who repose confidence in us for the data that has been shared with us. And also a lot of misuse of the data is done, and defraud the bank or the customers' accounts, etc. are happening. So if you look at the statistics, the 71% are cautious in using the online shopping. 67% are attentive when providing financial data over the phone or to the bank or a representative or anybody, because they are not sure whether the person who has come to collect the data or called on the phone is the right person to have a chat with on the sharing of the information. 28% abandon purchase of redirected or another site to provide payment information. Like if I am making a payment, buying an article in a Flipkart or Quickr.com, and when the payment terms are agreed, when payment comes, it directs to a different site which is a gateway for the collection of the money. So do I have to trust that site, or do I have to trust the original site? Who will respond in case my material is not delivered? These are the questions that come in mind of the purchaser. So they try to abandon. That is the statistics says 28% do that way. 15% have stopped the shopping altogether as a result of online frauds, etc., and a lot of awareness and etc. And the survey that conducted in USA have given these results, and these are available on the Google. If you search on the Google net also, you can get a lot more information on the attacks that are happening on the systems and the services part of the banking industry. Okay, what are services we offer? If you come to what are IT enabled services that bank offers, bank or financial institution offers, it's a broad list is given here. Retail services and wholesale services. It can categorize into two things, like account management. Under retail services, account management, bill payment and presentment, new account opening, consumer wire transfers. Wire instance, earlier days it's called TT, telegraph transfer, or even now it's called as a NEFT transfer or RTGS transfer, etc. Consumer wire transfers, investment and brokerage services like demat services or online trading, etc. Loan application approval process, account aggregation. If you have multiple accounts, to consolidate them accounts and then put them in one client ID, etc. Or all these services are offered under retail services. When you talk about wholesale services, again, whole account management, cash management, small business loan application approval or advances, etc. Commercial wire transfers and like EDI transfers, etc. Business to business payments, employee benefit, pension benefits administration, and whole lot of services under this are given. These are not the only services we offer, the banks offering to clients, but these are some broad services that are categorized and done to give an idea of what kind of services are delivered through the IT, taking the IT technology and IT support. And this apart from alternate delivery channels like internet banking, online trading, or ATM, or any other services, etc. Okay. When question of information on websites is posted, people are reserved to take the go through the sites and which do not offer a valid complete solution of the requirement, or the information that is being collected is partially or inaccurate or doubtful in the nature, and potential access to the confidential data, etc., are also a subject of matter, subject of concern, and potential liability of the spreading the virus, etc. When you download things, when you click on something, we don't know whether if that click may result in a bomb or virus or anything. That is not clear. Negative public perception of the institutions on the line of service disrupted. If that service is disrupted, if its website is defaced, all these things are not measured, because when people who are against the organization may also try to work against the organization, may try to deface the websites, or cause a damage to prevent the services availability, etc. All these things are coming in the way of denial of services, etc. So people, when clients are trying to use these services, they are more either become a victim or become more cautious than using it. So in the background of this, security is a concern, and the banks and financial institutions have to consider the security as one of their requirement. When we talk about websites, it's not all that websites are bad, and there are certain websites which are promoted, which are managed by the banks and financial institutions, are good and secure also. They are called transactional websites, and for that means if a website is called as transaction website, it has a certain features of the security of the security, like it's either supported by VeriSign or some kind of agency which constantly verifies the vulnerability and strengths of the website, and controls available for safeguarding the customer information. Robust authentication process is available, and which verify the identity of the new customers and authentication, and authenticate the existing customers who access the e-banking services, etc. And liability for unauthorized transactions, bank or financial institution takes responsibility of that. Losses from the fraud if the institution fails to verify the identity of the individuals or business applying for new account or credit online. These are the few features of the secure websites. These are called transactions. So to have these secure websites, what would be the underlying technology that required, underlying security requirements that are there? So to progress further in this subject, we should understand what is the need for information security. To provide quality of services for the clients that have been promised by the organization, whether been assured by the organization or bank or financial institution, to ensure that data is protected from misuse and is available when needed to authorized persons for authorized use. This is the primary function of the security requirement of the data or information. Okay. Now coming to the definition part, banking, as all of us know, just let us reiterate, recollect the definition. Banking activity of accepting deposits and safeguarding the money that owned by the individuals or entities, lending money for gainful or legal purposes in order to earn a profit. This is the basic definition of the banking. And what is information security? A process by which an organization protects and secures its systems, media, and facilities that process and maintain the information vital to its business operations. Where does this business operations information comes from? It is from the customer, who provides in the form of KYC, who provides in the form of returns, who provides in the form of some kind of requirement from the bank to do a banking business. And also internally generated data, returns, etc. from the point of legal and regulatory compliances. These are all data, and also internal management information, that is also a part of the information. So information security talks about protection of this information which is processed through using IT enabled services. Okay. Now in the security, information security, when you talk about that, information security is totally a concept of three pillars. What is that? What are those pillars? They are confidentiality, integrity, and availability. What is confidentiality means? To explain you in the true definition, assurance that information is shared only among authorized persons or organizations. Breaches of confidentiality can occur when data is not handled in a manner adequate to safeguard the confidentiality of the information concerned. Such disclosures can take place by word of mouth, by printing or copying or emailing, creating documents or other data, etc. The classification of the information should determine the confidentiality of the confidentiality and hence the appropriate safeguards. This is the brief definition and requirement of the information, the confidentiality, and how it can be protected. And similarly, integrity, which otherwise means a non-tampering of the data. When data is at rest or in motion or in the transit, etc., it should remain, it should not change except for the authorized value changes. Assurance that the information is authentic and complete, ensuring that information can be relied upon to be sufficiently accurate for its purpose. The term integrity is used frequently when considering information security, as it represents one of the primary indicators of security or lack of it. The integrity of data is not only whether the data is correct, but whether it can be trusted and relied upon. For example, making copies, say by emailing or a file, etc., of a sensitive document threatens both confidentiality and integrity of the information. Why? Because by making one or more copies, the data is then at risk of the change or modifications. When data can undergo also change, but who is authorizing that change and how it is controlled, how anybody has any knowledge about the changes, and whether the change data is valid or not, all these questions will come in the integrity issues. Availability is again assurance that the systems responsible for delivering, storing and processing the information are accessible when needed and by those who need them. That is what availability talks about. When we say information security considerations, the three pillars of the information has to be taken into account. This is the brief diagram how the security is governed by these three pillars. Key purpose of this information security is to preserve the confidentiality, integrity and availability of an organization's information. Sanitized and pure information only can engage in commercial or business activities. Loss of one or more of these attributes can threaten the continued existence of even the largest companies or corporate companies. So this is that means even if an organization has to deliver its products more securely and to the promise that been made by the organization, the quality of the service has to be maintained, the security has to be ensured. The security objectives, one of the objectives is risk assessment. Generally, the frameworks that are popular in the risk assessment are COSO model, which talks about monitoring, information communication, control procedures, risk assessment and control environment. Let us examine this in the subsequent slides. Security risk assessment. What is that risk assessment? Risk is a threat that is being exploited. Vulnerability has been exploited by the threats. It results in a risk. How do I understand that? How do I understand this risk? Risk is a item which causes or hampers the delivery of the particular channel or availability of a certain information when the particular threat is exploited, particular vulnerability is exploited by the threat. That is what risk is. gathers data. Risk assessment talks about gathers data regarding the information and technology assets of the organization. Threats to these assets or vulnerabilities and the existing security controls or processes is evaluated, and current security standards and requirements are assessed. Analyze these probability and impact associated with the known threats and vulnerabilities to their assets. Prioritize the risk present due to threats and vulnerabilities, and determine the appropriate level of training or control or assurance necessary for the effective mitigation. This is the brief about the risk assessment. It can be both technical and non-technical information should be gathered. Technical information or examples are network maps detailing internal and external connectivity, hardware and software inventories, database and files that contain critical and confidential information, processing arrangements, the interfaces with the external parties, external entities, hardware and software configurations, policies, standards, procedures, and operation maintenance, upgrading, monitoring of the technical systems, etc. All these will come under the risk assessment. And what are the non-technical things? Policies, standards, procedures, addressing the physical security, etc., and personal security, vendor contracts for the third-party services or any other contract services, insurance coverage. Additionally, information regarding the control effectiveness should also be gathered. Typically, that information comes from the security monitoring, including self-assessment and metrics and interdependencies test. Okay. When we discuss so at length the technical and non-technical risk areas, the risk areas can be categorized broadly into infrastructure related and peopleware. When this risk assessment is not done properly, what could be the causes of that? It can lead to incorrect decision making, leading to setback in the business, or interruption activities due to loss of data, hardware, software, peopleware, etc. Violation of privacy will happen, direct financial loss due to frauds, etc., or due to What are the types of threats we encounter? The types of threats could be errors and omissions, accidental damages, environmental hazards, etc., human error and omissions, computer abuse, unreliable systems, malicious damages, interruption to services, and frauds. These are the areas that can go into risk assessment. Okay. Based on this broad understanding, the banking industry regulator, RBI, has thought a committee should go into these details because security, when you talk, it's a wide applicable area, and how much is applicable to banking and financial industries based on the technology that they employ, the services they offer to the public, and the regulatory requirement that have to keep in focus, and also the requirements of the RBI banking license agreements. Okay. All these things have been considered by the RBI, and RBI had directed Mr. Gopalakrishna, executive of the RBI, to go into the details of the requirements of the technology security concerns. And the committee is chaired by him, and he studied at length various technological vulnerabilities, risks, and threats associated with them, all these things, and he came out with the recommendations of 9 chapters, which are detailed here. The chapters are: Chapter 1, Information Technology Governance; Chapter 2, Information Security; Chapter 3, IT Operations; Chapter 4, IT Services Outsourcing. Outsourcing, when we say any activity that's been outsourced, either maybe for data center operations or DR site operations, or your ISP provider for net connections or internet management, or telecom providers, all these things come under this. Even including your housekeeping will also come under this outsourcing. IS audit. Chapter 6, cyber frauds. Chapter 7, business continuity planning. Chapter 8, customer education. When you say customer education, awareness also is also part of that. Chapter 9, legal issues of the. All these recommendations have been built into these 9 chapters, and RBI has accepted these recommendations during the April 2010, and all banks are obliged to adhere to this guidelines in strictness. Okay. The chapter details what will go into those chapters as given here. Policies and procedures is one area, risk assessment is another area, inventory and the information data classification. What is meant by data classification? Data classification is classifying the data, whether it's a confidential, internal, public, or whatever it is. How data can be classified and to make it public or put under protection. This decides when data is classified, this decides the security requirements of that. If data is public, I don't have to protect that too much. The only thing is I have to ensure that these modifications are not made unauthorizedly. And if this data is confidential, I should ensure that all the data, all the controls to see that data is remain confidential should be in place. So these classification and security requirement will change based on this. Okay. Defining the roles and responsibilities. Why roles and responsibilities? Who can authorize? The roles define who can authorize and who will approve, and what is accountability if any transaction goes wrong. This is the decided in the roles and responsibilities. Access control for what? Access control for the systems, access control to the facilities, etc. All access requiring access need to have a definite requirement, need to know basis. Information security and information asset life cycle, personal security, physical security. Why physical security? Physical security, again, access to the facilities by unauthorized persons can create a lot of vulnerability in this vulnerability or risk in the facility. So to have a guarded system, secure in the physical security is policy is required. User training and awareness, incident management, application control and security, mitigation controls, implementation of new technologies, encryption, data security, vulnerability assessment, etc. What is vulnerability assessment? When you talk about vulnerability assessment, how weak is my system? To assess that, I need to do a vulnerability assessment of the system. Which are the areas are weak for me, and how best the people can access that, and what is the mitigation control I have to adopt. This is the basic essence of the vulnerability assessment. Establishing the ongoing service monitoring process. What is monitoring process? Service monitoring. When you outsource any activity, you have said that availability of service is one of my concern, and the outsourced partner has to deliver that services within the agreed parameters at the agreed level. If that service is not available, then it has to be taken up properly under with a penalty or with a termination of the services, etc., so that our achievement of the assured delivery of service with the client will be maintained. And this requires a monitoring. For example, if you say network bandwidth is assured 2 Mbps and I am getting only 1 Mbps, as a result my branches are not able to function, and that is a service deficiency, so which has to be taken up with the service provider or the telecom or any network provider. Security measures against malware, patch management, change management. Again, the change management is one of the important aspects also. Who has to approve, request the make the changes of the requested changes, by whom, who will approve that, who will test that. All these processes will be defined in the change management. Audit trails, information security and reporting metrics, information security in critical services, service providers and vendors. Why this has been taken, when we can as well classify into outsourced activities. There are certain activities which are totally dependent on service provider, like telecom, like DR facility, management of the DR facility, management of the data center facility. These are dependent on the totally by service providers. So dependency also dictates the requirement to monitor them. Okay, network security, remote access, distributed denial service of attacks, etc., DDoS attacks, and monitoring those things. Implementation of ISO 27001 information security management system, wireless security, business continuity considerations. What are business continuity considerations? These are some of the requirements, some of the assurance that In case of a problem at my place, due to any reason, due to unavailability of the systems, due to unavailability of the people or any other contingency, I'll be able to operate my operations from elsewhere and provide a assured minimum level of service to the clients. That is what business consideration, and this is called business continuity plan also. We'll be discussing this in subsequent slides also. General information regarding delivery of channels. These are the few topics within which we are, within which Gopalakrishna committee system operates, recommendations operate. And this diagram represents a suggested or you could say an idea how the systems integrate each other and then how the layout is given. When you look at this, this is an internet-based customer who is using telephone, wireless or broadband and thing. This is a customer ISP, and who through internet he approaches the bank ISP. Bank ISP again calls the bank, connects the bank through router, and there is a firewall which protects the information which guards the site from the unauthorized persons. And this network IDS is there. IDS stands for Intrusion Detection System, IDS, and again firewall, and then web server, external server, again firewall. This is to give an idea how the architecture works about and how the security is built into the system. This is an idea of the diagram, and this may not be true to every organization. This is one of the models adopted by one of the banks, and then this how it is, and banks may choose their own organization. Let us not stick to this is the best model or something like that. It's one of the suggested model to give an idea how the secure systems can work.